Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctorate student and I make videos about real-world applications to psychology. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of this content. So today we're doing another Q&A video. I'm going to be answering some questions that you guys have left on my comments, some of them a little bit more personal about me and some of them more technical and psychological. So one very frequent question that I get is whether I have other forms of social media like Instagram. And honestly, I'm flattered that you guys even want to know, but it would not be ethical, unfortunately, for any potential clients or existing clients to find me on social media and see me in an unprofessional light. So this is the only platform where I'm going to be talking about psychology things. So if you could please stop asking for other social medias because I just can't give it. It wouldn't be ethical. Another question is if I can do a skin routine, and unfortunately the answer is no, for the same reason, because I've heard of people having to choose between a beauty channel and their career in a doctorate program because it's not considered professional. It wouldn't be good for clients to see you in that more colloquial light. So while I'm not going to do a skin routine video, I can tell you just what I use. And none of these are sponsored, of course, but I mostly use The Ordinary and The Body Shop at this moment. In the morning, I try to use like a serum like absorbic acid or niacinamide, something to clear skin because my main concern is dark spots. And then I go in with a moisturizer, like something with vitamin C or vitamin E. And then of course sunscreen, super important, even when we're indoors if there's a lot of sunlight. Later on in the day, I will do a chemical exfoliator. I really like The Ordinary's BHA peel. And then at night, I just use The Ordinary's 2% retinoid, which I'm pretty sure is not on sale anymore, but I'm hoping they come out with something new. And then I go in with vitamin E cream from The Body Shop, and then some days I do a face mask as well. So I hope that answered your question, but I can't do a whole video on it. Another one is, can I do a makeup video? And again, I wish, but not really, for the same reason. What is my zodiac sign? I am a Capricorn. I get a lot of people thinking I'm a Libra for some reason. I'm not really into astrology, but it's interesting that that many people think that. Someone asked for tips for growing a YouTube channel. So one thing that I think is super important is just having very captivating thumbnails. Not like clickbaity per se. Obviously, let it reflect what the video is actually going to show. But, something that's really going to captivate audiences, something that says like pretty large and clear what the video is going to be about. Also having a good camera. I just kind of use my boyfriend's phone camera. I got lucky with that. I don't know what I would be using if I didn't have this. And also just film somewhere with a lot of natural sunlight. Also be sure to jump cut any awkward pauses or anything because people these days are very, they want information fast and they're not gonna watch the whole video if it's not pretty fast paced. Obviously, of course, have really interesting topics for your market audience. So, if your market audience is, being a college student, make videos that are really requested for, college student topics. Don't go into like gardening if your topic is college life, Also use hashtags, try as many as possible, try to see what the most viewed videos from, similar topics, what their hashtags were. Respond to comments because that really encourages more engagement and it allows you to connect with your audience. And post regularly and really as much as possible. So right now during the quarantine, I've been posting pretty much every day. Obviously, I don't expect to keep this up once the summer is over and work and school start up again. At least I would say at least twice a week, if not more than that. The more the better. Just obviously make sure you don't run out of ideas. Another question I got was the difference between low self-esteem and narcissism. And this is a really good question because at the core of most narcissistic personalities is low self-esteem. Even if they come off as really confident and arrogant, in reality what's under that is really low self-esteem. So while I think most narcissistic individuals have low self-esteem, that doesn't mean that most people with low self-esteem are narcissists. I mean, narcissism is just a constellation of certain traits, and just having low self-esteem doesn't mean that you are going to get that certain temperament triggered that you're going to become a narcissist. There are certainly some overlapping traits or behaviors between people with low self-esteem and people with narcissism, but overall, I would say narcissism is a much more exploitative entitled, arrogant, critical, envious type of personality, where someone with low self-esteem, might be really insecure, might occasionally take jabs at other people to make themselves feel better, but that doesn't mean that they have a narcissistic personality. I get so many questions about the Myers-Briggs Test, the personality questionnaire that, most of us have taken over the years. I have to say, we don't use it in the field of psychology. We do not use it for personality testing. Its psychometric properties are pretty poor, which basically means it's not a very valid instrument. And I'm not going to make a whole video on it just because I don't want to make a video just to bring down the work of a psychologist. All I can say is, don't put too much weight on what your personality type is based on that, because that is not a very valid instrument and it's not really predictive of other factors. Can narcissistic people get better with therapy? Absolutely. I mean, like any personality disorder, it's going to be very hard because it is by definition very stable, persistent personality pattern, and personality is hard to change. I mean, as you can imagine, even if you don't have a personality disorder, it's hard to change things that make you inherently how you are. But it can definitely be treated, especially by a more knowledgeable therapist. So if you know someone that's a narcissist, or if you feel like you have some narcissistic tendencies, absolutely get therapy, because it should help you at least a little, if not helping you get over this condition. I got a couple questions on empaths versus narcissists. I have to be honest, I have not heard the term empath being used in any of my classes, so I'm not completely sure if it's one of those things that just kind of sprung up out of the internet. Obviously, almost everyone has a degree of empathy, actually quite a bit of it, unless you have something like antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. Essentially, an empath would be conceptualized as someone with more empathy than usual, more empathy than the average person, which I feel like would be really hard to quantify. So I feel like people shouldn't necessarily call themselves empaths, because there's no way for you to know how much another person is empathizing. There's no way for you to know if that person is really feeling the emotions of someone else suffering. Conceptually, yes, empaths would be kind of the opposite of narcissists in that they would have a whole lot of empathy for people, whereas narcissists have limited or impaired empathy for other people generally. So they might attract sometimes, because people who are very high in empathy might be more willing to make excuses for narcissists, and narcissists might be feeling like they kind of get a free pass. So that's why people high in empathy and narcissists might be attracted to each other. But overall, I don't think just because you are attracted to narcissistic people, that makes you an empath per se. I think it would be really hard to determine what exactly an empath is and kind of where you are on that scale of how much empathy you have. How to pick a thesis topic. Really go for what fascinates you, not what is like kind of meh, not what you think you might find a lot of research on or a lot of support for, but what really makes you passionate. So for me, I was really considering doing something on acculturation stages in Latinx families, because I am also a first-generation immigrant and I find acculturation gaps in families to be interesting. But I was just doing this project for my social psychology class, and I realized that I was a lot more interested in the impact of hookup culture on college women. So obviously it's something a little bit more taboo, something a little bit harder to stand up in front of professors and talk about. But the way you're going to be able to stand up in front of professors in a really intimidating setting and talk about what you're passionate about and have answers to their tough questions is if you really did the research. You're not going to pay attention to research that doesn't interest you as much, or it's going to be so much harder. So I would rather, spend 2 years studying something that I genuinely want to know about than something that's just kind of like, I have to do a lit review for, this project that I'm doing. So I definitely recommend doing what you're passionate about rather than what you think there will be a lot of research on or what you think will look good. And also, make sure it's a topic that you're passionate about, but also that you have a potential chair for, because when you have to match with the chair, it can be really stressful. I heard from my classmates, if there's no chair that matches your interests. So if you end up having to really struggle to find a chair. That's not going to be good. So make sure that you talk to potential chairs and ask them what their research interests are to see if there's anything that can line up with yours. How to actually go about starting a relationship and not forcing one. I mean, this question kind of suggests, some level of attempt at forcing one, because a good relationship will probably come easily, and you're not going to have to calculate all these different steps of what to do, even, what to do to not force it, because it's just going to come naturally. It's going to be a good give and take. So, it's going to be balanced. It's not going to be like one person is always trying to plan dates and the other is kind of the retreating person. So I don't have a whole lot of tips for this. Just express how you feel, let things take their course, and, like you said, don't force anything. Some study tips for psychology programs. So there are so many readings for a psychology program. On average, I would say I have probably more than 100 pages of readings per class. So if you do the math on that, that's like 400, 500 pages of textbooks per week. So you really have to master the art of skimming and figuring out what it is that's going to be required that you know. Obviously, if there's something more important, go into more depth about that so that you can have things to participate in class. And also, if there's going to be any tests, then also ask for a study guide and try to see what particular terms are important for you to know, rather than studying everything. Once you skimmed the readings, I recommend flashcards and Quizlet. That's just me personally. I study better with flashcards. And then try to do kind of like a study guide with just like every single important concept or term or process in a notebook, and then try to condense it more and more and more. So if initially it's like 5 pages long, try to condense it to 2 pages, then 1 page, then half a page. And the smaller it gets, the less you will have that you don't know. So obviously just keep doing that until you feel like, okay, maybe there's like a couple concepts that I'm not sure on, but everything else I'm sure about. Is there anything myself or other clients can do when we're in the chair to be conscious of our therapist's well-being as much as our own? Or is that something that's just not for us to worry about? So this is such a sweet question, because no one ever really worries about the therapist on the other side. And, while it is really sweet, I would urge you to not worry about it, because, we're trained for this. This is our job. It's really on us to take care of ourselves. But when you're in the chair, the focus is on you. It's really about improving you and not so much alleviating suffering from the therapist. How to put yourself out there as an introvert. So, as you might know, I'm an introvert too, and I made a huge mistake, even up to the end of college, just kind of going after friends. I don't know based on what. I guess based on who was more available to hang out rather than actual interests. So in grad school that really changed, and I focused a lot more on making friends that I could see myself being comfortable with, and friends that I had a lot in common with and could actually talk about a range of issues with. Pay attention to who you try to befriend, because as you probably know, there's a limited amount of energy that us introverts have for putting into trying to make a friendship with someone. So really go after the people that make you feel comfortable, like you can be friends with them and like you have a lot in common. And, find a reason to add them on Facebook or get their number or something. And then when an event pops up that you think they might enjoy, invite them to it. So if, they're really into art and this art gallery thing pops up, then ask them if they want to come with you, and ask if they want to grab a bite to eat before. I'm making it sound like a date, but friendships are kind of like dating in the early stages. You kind of have to build that connection, and it's not going to come as naturally at first. And then I got a really good question about the participant pool for the study I mentioned in my golden relationship ratio video, the Gottman 1992 study. So they asked, was anyone diagnosed with any type of mental illness? If that's not the case, then it seems like this 94% accuracy would be skewed considering the limited participant pool. So I did look this up, and the participant pools were 79 heterosexual couples in Indiana. And the mean age was 30 years old, and I'm not sure about mental illness of the participant pool, but you're right, it's not probably generalizable to the whole population. For one, they're heterosexual couples, so that's not going to be necessarily the same for queer couples. But I would point out that, pretty much no study in the world is completely generalizable to the general population. Most studies are actually done on college freshmen, so that's something to keep in mind because most of the research we have is not representative of the general population. But you make a really good point, and I really appreciate the critical thinking because that is so important for research or for really any topic. So this was my Q&A. Please let me know if you have any other questions, as always, in the comments, and I'll try to get to them either, responding to you or in a Q&A, or maybe making a separate video about this. I will say that some of the comments, I get the notification and then they disappear, and I'm not sure what happens to those. And I also have a ton of other video ideas coming for things that you guys suggested for topics, so I definitely want to listen to what you guys want on this channel and try to cater to you guys as much as possible. So I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you for watching.